Hi everybody, Scott here. Just back to drink another tea today. Today we're going to drink a tea that is almost 10 years old. It's an autumn 2010 production from Yunnan Sourcing, which we pressed from tea from Jie Liang, Zhai, which is a Bulang area village. And it's about 10 miles west of Laoma, I believe. Been there a couple of times. I was there in 2010 and I think 2011. I didn't get any tea in 2011, which was kind of a bummer. But 2010, we had a spring production and autumn production. This is the autumn production. And this is one of those teas that I feel like has aged really nicely and is, when it was young, it was ultra bitter and intense. And now, with age, it still has bitterness. Whoops. But anyways, so much for my little. But with the bitterness has faded a lot, and it's really transformed into something nice. I drank this the other day, and it had been a while since I had it. And I was just really impressed with it, and it's really coming along nicely. To say that this is an aged tea, yes, but I would say it's very much a semi-aged tea. Anyways, let's get down to, hey Lissy, what's going on? Lissy's here. It's not very particularly warm today, so she's curled up in a little ball down here. Yeah, let's get to it. Got the water boiled. The thing that really got me with this tea when a few days ago and I drank it was the incredible, it really has an incense aroma. I think what they call is like jiangxiang, which is kind of a common aroma that you'll find actually in Bulang teas. You find it in other teas, but in Bulang teas it's really pronounced. It's a very incense-like aroma. It's really incredibly unique and I think very pleasant. Luckily, it doesn't taste like incense. It just has this incense smell. I'm getting it a little bit there, although this was a chunk here. Not too tightly compressed. This is stone compression. Which is, typical of our sheng offerings. But I also wanted to reiterate kind of how I brew tea solo for people. I had a couple of customers asking kind of how I brew tea and what they recommend. And it's really not, this is really, if you're going to just drink tea solo, this is like really the only equipment that you need, in my opinion. You don't need a strainer, really. You could have one, but then it makes it kind of a pain if you want to try to strain individual cups. I find that if you have good gaiwan skills, you can pretty much block most of the stuff. The little stuff will come out, and then you kind of just let it sink to the bottom, and then just don't drink it. It's quite simple. But as you can see, I used the first wash already, washed all the cups, and now this is the first infusion right here. And now I'm going to do the second infusion. And somebody is asking me, well, why do you need like 5 cups? Well, I don't need 5 cups, but if let's say I only have 1 cup or 2 cups, then I have to drink this, but right now it's way too hot to drink. I don't have my thermometer, but it's too hot to drink. So then if I only have 1 cup, I have to drink this before I put this one in here. Of course, I could use a chahai, but then you're in the same situation. You've got, especially in the early steeps, you want to keep the steeping times really short, so you need a place to put it. So even if I put it in a chahai, I still need a place to put it if I want to individually taste each infusion. If I want to just mix them all together in here, and then pour them into 1 cup, that's fine, but when I'm evaluating teas, I don't want to do that at all. I want to drink each infusion. And so it's really easy for me. Infusion 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then when I'm done here, it's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 if I get there. But that's kind of how I do it. And so like these are still too hot to drink. So for me, it's like, okay, I'm glad I could wait, but then the water is cooling down. And then the more you boil the water, reboil the water, it's not so good. It's better to maybe reboil the water once. I find that I can usually reboil it once or twice during a session, and that's enough. But I'm just like constantly reboiling it. And temperature is really important for me. So you've got to have a high temperature, especially when you're brewing pour, just because you want to get all the flavor out of it, and it really needs that heat. So I hope that makes sense. That's my rationale behind this particular technique that I use. But it's really simple. You've got a gaiwan here, which is like a $5-something gaiwan. You've got cups. These cups are pricey, but any kind of, if you're doing a 60 milliliter gaiwan, if you have like a 50 milliliter cup, it's going to be enough because the tea offsets quite a bit of the water. So 50 milliliters, I think these are 60, but 50 to 70 milliliter cups. They don't need to be fancy cups. These ones are kind of fancy. They're Jingdezhen. They're very heavy, and I like them. But let's go ahead and keep going here. And again, this is still too hot to drink. So I've got this one lined up waiting here. I'm still doing infusions, and I'm not just kind of sitting around waiting. Now, if you're just drinking tea for pleasure, it's fine. You can wait and you can let it cool in the cup, and then you got to reboil the water, which is still not really advantageous. But that's kind of how I approach it. Using a chahai is good. If you obviously, if you're making tea for more than one person, having a chahai is really good. Or if you're just drinking tea and you're not paying any attention to which steeps, if you want to just like put steep 2, 3, 4 together in here, and kind of just gradually drink from it, that's fine too. There's no right way to do it. But I felt like it was hopefully useful for y'all to see my rationale for why I brew like this. So, and I've got four steeps here now. The other thing is it's nice, I can really focus on tasting them. So now I'm kind of setting myself up for this like steep 1 through 5 tasting. And then I can just kind of focus on that. So, and when you're drinking them really close together, you really get a better sense, whereas if you drink this one and then you're waiting, and then you drink this one, and I was like, oh shit, I wasn't paying attention when I drank the last one. And, so it's like when you kind of just move through this process. So like right now I'm brewing the tea and I'm trying to pay attention at least to consistently steep it. Obviously the early steeps, I'm going to do shorter infusions. And once I get up here, the steeps are going to get a little bit longer. But for the first 5 steeps, typically I'm definitely coming in, I would say definitely with under 40 seconds at least. Of course, it depends on the tea too. Some teas you're going to push, some teas you're not going to want to push. This is a tea that I probably should not push, at least in the first 5 steeps. So I didn't do a timer, so I don't really know exactly, but that incense smell. I had a customer and a friend of mine send me a 2003 Laobanzhang cake, Dai, a little piece, and I was like, "Did you store this with incense?" Because I didn't even get to the point of steeping it yet, and I smelled the dry tea, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this smells like it was stored in like an incense, like with incense or something." And he was like, "No, definitely not. There's no incense in my house at all." And I was like, "Huh." I'm like, "That's crazy." Well, yeah, it was just like, it was so, and now I'm really, and with this particular tea, I'm really getting that incense again. It's not as strong as with the 2003, but yeah, let's go ahead and drink this. This should be cool enough now. Still bitter, but it's got this nice floral taste as well, sweet. Thick. See, so I'm just gonna pour that. That's why I don't use a strainer. I could pour that on the table too. There's just a little bit of, little broken pieces and broken bits, and sometimes little burnt edges from the Kilgreen in the bottom of the cup, and that's just fine. I'm not gonna just drink that down. That could be a little hard on your stomach. Wow. Almost 10 years, and this tea has a real strong bitterness to it still. But the thing that's also happening with it, it's really sweet as well. So I'm just gonna pour that right there. And then actually I'm gonna start working on the next steeps, just so that I can keep the video not too long. Wow, this is like a mind bender right here. This is and it's interesting. I feel like I understand why people have kind of left this tea for all these years. It's interesting though, because I feel like Lao Ma is very similar to this tea, very, very similar. But it tends to be more popular. I think because it's just more well known. Although Jie Liang's is by far, and I've also heard that Jie Liang tea is also being sold as Lao Ma tea, and Jie Liang tea is also used to make kind of like fake Lao Banjiang tea, blending with other Bulang teas to make kind of like, it gives it that bitterness. But the thing about Jie Liang tea as compared to Lao Banjiang tea is that Jie Liang tea, the bitterness is more, it stays longer. It does have a sweetness that comes out. Lao Banjiang is kind of like bitter, and then it just like the bitterness just fades really. There's a little bit there that hangs out, but the bitterness it's like comes and then it goes, and then it just leaves you with this. Whereas this one, it comes, it stays, and then but it also leaves you with something else too, which I think is very nice. But anybody that would confuse this with Lao Banjiang obviously hasn't drank Lao Banjiang, or even a small amount of this in blended with other Bulang tea. I'd be willing to guess would still not be anything that similar to Lao Banjiang. But that's the thing, and we have this market, for the last 15 years where everybody's crazy about Lao Banjiang, is that so many people have never actually drank. So many people have drank tea that's labeled as Lao Banjiang, but they've never actually drank actual Lao Banjiang tea. So for them not to know what real Lao Banjiang tastes like wouldn't be surprising. Let's go ahead. But anyways, Jie Liang is kind of one of those, and I think it's interesting. Jie Liang's tea, I think it's also sold as Lao Ma as well. That's probably, and in fact, it's I think quite similar to Lao Ma. Nice. This steep's really good. The bitterness is I don't know if it's probably less in the tea, but I think it's also transformed a bit in my mouth. That my mouth has kind of gotten more used to it, and it's not just like bitter. But I do remember I had a friend that took me, a guy that was from Monghai area, that I met, and he took me to Jie Liang to introduce me to where this tea was grown and stuff. And he was kind of like the guy that knew all these villagers, and so we went and visited them. I remember them taking a mug of like a tin, like one of those Chinese kind of like coated steel mugs or whatever that were real popular back in the 80s and 90s, and took some Mao Cha and just poured boiling water into it, and we sat there and drank it, and grandpa style. And the guy from I remember he actually spit it out. He was like, "Oh, this is too bitter." I still remember that. And the villagers were like totally laughing, and then they brought some like wild honey that they had gotten out of a tree hollow, and gave that to him. It was pretty funny though. He was a seasoned tea guy, but he he wasn't a fan, I guess, of the young Jie Liang tea. And it, you know, at the time, for me, it was also like, wow, I'm going to do this. I'm going to press this tea. And, you know, and here it is 10 years later. Oh my gosh. And it's still pretty bitter, but it's way, 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 way less bitter and a lot more pleasant. It's very sweet. It's thick. It's got this incredible kind of incense smell. And, the chachi is really nice too. It's got this syrupy sweetness too that just comes and just really, it's like hanjun. It's very lubricating, which is nice because it's like when you're drinking something like this and it's so intense, but yeah, it's lubricating and it's making, you know, it's got this mouth watering, it's got this really good feeling to it, which makes it a really nice, an interesting kind of like counterpoint to, you know, the bitter, more aggressive side of it. All right, so again, using our system here, I'm gonna reboil the water again because we're getting into some later steeps. I probably didn't steep this one long enough, but this is steep number 7. And then sometimes I'll like to smell the bottom of the cup smell. Excuse me. Wow, this is still. Oh yeah, I'm getting the kind of the chills along the back and that kind of It's just got that energy after all these years. It's still. There's a spring version as well. The spring version is good. 250 gram cake. Oh, excuse me. It's got me. What do you say, Lucy? Poor Lucy. She has allergies still. I think it's the oak pollen. All right. Nice dark olive colored leaves here. Just gonna get rid of the excess water there. You don't want to water it down. When you have like a big thing of water kind of between the outer edge here and above the lid, I like to get rid of that. And then sometimes you'll see that a little bit of water there, it'll actually get kind of sucked down as it'll kind of disappear into the gaiwan as the leaves absorb the water. Although I don't know this late, and this is a steep number 8. I don't know if it'll, I don't know how well that'll work, but I do like to remove the extra water around the edge. Oh my gosh, this tea is like, boom, dang. It's like, it can be really stimulating and at the same time like really relaxing, you know. And again, these are from old trees. Some of them up to like a couple hundred years old. The tea that this tea was picked from, this family, and there wasn't much of it. I think we pressed, oh gosh, I don't even remember, 60 kilos or something like that, 65 kilos, it says on the site. Yeah, just fully like climbing up in the trees, and I'll try to post some pictures. I think I still have some of the pictures. I have a really hard time keeping, especially back in the day. It wasn't like I didn't have anything like on the cloud back in 2010. I mean, it was just, that wasn't really a thing, at least not for me. But all right, let's get this one in here, and then well, you know what? I'll do another thing that I sometimes. Ugh, tea drunk. Do a little. I call it the flippening. It's kind of a stupid name, I know. But so I just took the bottom stuff and turned it on the top. So sometimes that stuff, especially when you're brewing. I mean, I did 4.5 grams. Yeah, sometimes that stuff down there doesn't open up, so I like to flip it later and it gives it a little boost. Okay, steep number 7. Oh, Lucy, I put some medicine in Lucy's ears. I'm sorry, I know you hate that. Wow, this is a tea that maybe some people won't like it, but I think it's something that if you're into sheng pu-erh, you should experience it. So again, there's samples available. And really stable. I mean, the output of this got a little bit of a bitterness fading around number 4 or 5, but it's still, well, and it's kind of hard to tell like what's happening in the mouth and what's from before and what's from this particular cup. Nice, full-bodied, thick. Yeah, steep number 9. This is a tea that I would say this is one of those ones that's going to go probably 12 steeps. I don't know if I'm going to make you watch me brew it 12 steeps, because it's definitely going to take some pushing, but oh my gosh, this tea is like a... I still remember when this tea was young and I just pressed it, and I think I had it a couple times and I was just like, nope, forget about it. Just forget about it. Just put it away, because I remember drank it a few times, and even like a few years ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, it was probably the last time that I drank it, and I was just like, wow, this is still really intense. And it still is really intense, but it's got a lot more nuanced kind of aromas and tastes that are making it, I think, more interesting as opposed to just a purely aggressive tea. It's got a lot more nuance than it was before, so it's really nice. It's really I'm really looking forward to seeing this again in 5 and 10 years from now, so it's like 15 and 20 years old. And yeah. Oh, I thought I was going to be able to lift it. All right. Beep, beep. If you don't have a beeping teapot, you need one. I'm kidding. All right, steep number 9. Still going strong. Mineral, bitter, incense, floral, sweet. Wow. Gotta be careful. Lucy's right down there. I'm gonna slosh this boiling water on her. She would never forgive me, ever. She never forgets anything that ever happens to her, especially any kind of bad thing that ever happens to her. Like I think she was sleeping in front of a door in Oregon, and somebody came out the door and just didn't see her. She was lying down there at the base of the door. She wasn't really hurt, but she definitely learned her lesson. She will never just like sleep in front of a door again. Right, Lucy? Oh yeah, life's rough, huh? But anyways, I'm gonna let this sit, and yeah, psych. You thought you were gonna get to drink this one with me, but you're not. Probably just gonna let that one sit for a little while. Although it probably doesn't need to. Again, this is a badass tea, Jie Liang, almost 10 years old. I do recommend it. I recommend picking up a sample. You might also want to pick up a 2010 spring sample as well. If you're a fan of like really, like Bulang mountain teas, Lao Mana, Lao Banjiang, or you just want to try something totally unique and interesting with some strong cha qi, then I would highly recommend this one. So anyways, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.